November's Eve blessings, everybody. I am so excited that it's autumn, and I'm so ready to just start talking about autumn everything. so, um, Today I'm just going to start this little video series on the November's Eve season with just kind of a real talk about what this time of the year represents. So if you are interested in all of the history and the traditions and all of the textbook definitions of what all the correspondences are this time of year, have fun on Pinterest. There's tons of that stuff out there and a lot of it's really interesting, but if you are not resonating with what you're reading, or if you've already been on this path for a while and you're kind of getting sick of the generic definitions for everything, the idea of this series is to basically just kind of bring more potency into each of the topics just by kind of letting our souls spill out of us about how we feel about each one of the themes of the season. So I'm going to kind of kick this off by just talking about the overall vibe of the November's Eve season. So I consider November's Eve season to pretty much be 2 weeks before Halloween and 2 weeks after. So like that month basically. And basically this is the time of year when the days are noticeably getting shorter. And if you live in a climate where the weather changes a lot, it's definitely starting to become noticeable that the temperature is changing and becoming colder. And since a lot of our Wheel of the Year traditions are kind of based around Celtic mythology, it does make sense that this time of the year is represented the way that it is, because in that climate, which is very similar, most central-ish Europe and stuff. I'm really bad with geography, guys, but that part of Europe and pretty much all the parts of Europe where it snows and then they have summer is very similar to my climate. I think I remember being in school and I think my teacher said that the part of New York that I live in is on the same one of the same latitude or longitude lines or whatever with Germany. So we have very similar weather, if that's any indication. So a lot of the Wheel of the Year stuff comes from Celtic mythology, which is mixed with Ireland, and then some of the Nordic stuff gets mixed in there too. So I really do personally at least resonate with the climate recommendations that you usually get with this time of the year. It definitely is noticeably autumn. So the thing about autumn is that it represents the end of the warm season and the beginning of the cold season. And if you live in the modern world and you live in a really comfortable house and you've got all your shit together, great. But if you were someone who, any of our ancestors really, all of our ancestors lived a lot closer to the elements than we do. So that would have been a time when it's not just about drinking pumpkin spice lattes and stuff like that. It's about really preparing for the winter ahead, because for all of our ancestors, regardless of what part of the world, any harsh season was pretty much life or death to them. It wasn't oh no, I've got to dig my car out of the snow and be late to work. No, it was if you don't get it together for the season, you and your family might not survive. So that's why I feel this time of the year represents our fears and the shadow aspects of things, because it's that reminder that even though the weather isn't as bad as it's ever going to get at this time of the year, it's that reminder of, hey, winter is coming. So it makes total sense that this evolved into this tradition that has to do with facing our fears and stuff like that. So personally, I'm really not into the whole horror and blood and guts type movies and stuff that a lot of people are into around this time of the year. It's not interesting to me. But what really does interest me is simply acknowledging and making peace with and learning to understand the darkness that's within each one of us. So if you've been following my blog posts and stuff for a while, you've probably heard me throw around the word shadow work a lot. In fact, I finally went ahead and did like an official blog post about shadow work a couple of weeks ago. So if you are interested in that, I will try and remember to link that below this video. But honestly, I'm not even the best person to explain the topic, so you could totally just Google it, and a couple of people who I know explain it really well are Teal Swan and Kellyanne Maddox, who are both on YouTube, so feel free to look that up. But anyway, in a nutshell, shadow work is basically where we acknowledge that everything in life has its polar opposite, and that the best way that we can, make our lives make sense is by balancing those things. So if we're going to run around saying we're light workers and everything is love and light, then in order for that to actually work and make sense, we also have to be shadow workers. So in shadow work, basically, you just take a look at your fears, your doubts, anything about your personality that you're not proud of, anything that just kind of makes you feel funky, it can be something really serious to something really simple, just like anything that triggers a kind of funky, not so good effect emotionally. That's a shadow aspect. So you take those things and you first of all sit with them and acknowledge them and understand that they're there instead of like suppressing them. And then there are different techniques that you can use to try and integrate those things into your personality in a healthy way so that it's being expressed in a way that's helping you instead of going behind the scenes in your subconscious mind and creating turmoil in your life. So it's a huge thing if you're into law of attraction or just anything, really anything on this psycho-spiritual sort of spectrum, you should probably really get into shadow work. I'm pretty obsessed with it. It's one of the main things that I deal with in my practice, and this time of year really represents a time to like really start getting back into it. Because like over the summer, it's nice to kind of just lighten up and have fun and, enjoy yourself. But when autumn starts to roll in, I tend to look at it as like, instead of calling it like back to school, I like to call it back to soul. Like if you're not in school anymore, or even if you are, you can basically take this as an opportunity to channel your academic ambition towards learning about yourself or learning about topics that you feel will better yourself, and shadow work is one of those things. Right, so, as always, Neko decided to make an appearance. Hi, Neko! Hi! You're so cute. Okay. So, yeah, the whole shadow work thing it's an amazing time of year to just use this as that time of year as a reminder to get into it. And like, you don't even have to delve into it in like a really intense way. Like one way that it's easy to just kind of get into is to do a journal entry about some topic, any topic, that has a little bit of like a darkness to it. So like it can be any theme of like the Halloween-y season that you're interested in. It can be like, what is your favorite Halloween movie and why? And just kind of go a little bit deeper and kind of psychoanalyze yourself to see why you like that movie so much. It can be like a favorite song or a type of music. Like, so for example, for me, when I went on my spiritual love and light journey for the first time, I pretty much cut out all like rock music and stuff because I decided it was too negative and it didn't have a place in my life anymore, even though like my entire teens and very early 20s were bombarded with it. But like now that I'm more of a well-rounded person and I realize that my spiritual path doesn't have to just be love and light, it's about integrating my whole self. So a couple of years ago around this time of year, I actually for the first time just sat down and looked up all of my favorite songs from when I was younger. The ones that I had decided were like too negative or just weren't like high vibe enough or whatever, and just listened to them. And first of all, simply appreciated them and was like, you know what? Some of this stuff was terrible and not that good, and I was just going through a weird teen phase when I liked that. And then others of it was really beautiful music, and I still love it. And it's kind of silly that I've been like shoving down that aspect of my like artistic taste. So I kind of, a couple years ago, I think it was like 2015 autumn time, I kind of like reintegrated that genre back into my life and accepted that that's part of who I am. Obviously, there's a time and place for it. I can't listen to like really dark, heavy music 24/7. That would be really imbalanced for me. But there's definitely room in it, not just in my life, but in my spiritual path as well. So that's kind of like, that's the vibe of where I kind of want to go with this particular series. We're going to go more into depth about more specific subjects and like themes. But I just wanted to kind of set that overall stage of like, this is that time of year when you get to explore your own darkness. And that doesn't have to be anything scary. It's actually quite enjoyable, and the fact that we're integrating this into our grand scheme of our year is going to help us to be a lot more well-rounded in general, and it's also going to help us appreciate the other aspects of our personalities as we shift into the times of year when those things become most apparent. So I hope that was interesting to you guys. I know it was kind of vague, just because it's the introduction and we're going to go into more detail in a little bit. But if you were interested in, like I said, the shadow work topic, if that's one of your things, if you're a shadow work junkie, definitely comment below and tell us about your experience with that. And yeah, just kind of start allowing the more darker parts of your tastes and stuff like that to kind of start culminating around this time of year and expressing it in a way that is healthy and enjoyable. So if that means you gotta watch Halloween movies, or you gotta listen to some heavy metal or something, or wear some black, whatever you gotta do to integrate the darker part of your personality in a healthy way into the overall persona that is you at this time in your journey. So I hope that was enjoyable. I will talk to you guys again very soon. And until then, brightest blessings and dark blessings too. All right, just kidding. Bye, guys.